250 years ago, America itself was a startup.
Right.
It was
That's
just
a really
an
good
idea.
point, actually. Yeah.
We're the leader of the free world now because we have the leading economy. That's not an accident.
Right.
Entrepreneurs, innovators led the way in the agricultural revolution, led the way in the industrial revolution, led the way in the technology revolution. So we went from being the startup nation to the leader of the free world.
Right.
Awesome. But that doesn't mean it's guaranteed to continue. In fact, other
just
countries,
like big companies aren't guaranteed.
And other countries kind of figure this out.
Yeah,
Sort of the secret sauce that sort of animated the American story is innovation entrepreneurship. So you see countries investing heavily in basic research, being very creative around immigration policy to attract talent, figuring out ways to create the right kind of investment incentives, the right kind of regulatory environment. So it's now a global battle. It's a global battle. We saw 50 years ago sort of the globalization of capital. We saw the globalization of manufacturing. Now we're seeing the globalization of entrepreneurship. And so we have to understand that, and we have to step up our upside. And in the chapter on that, I did talk about a number of things. I think the work the Congress has done with the White House, including the Jobs Act, that legalized crowdfunding is important because it levels the playing field. So entrepreneurs who don't happen to have money or know people who have money can use the internet to raise capital to get started. The first step was done with the Congress. The SEC put some initial rules in place. There's still some work there, but that's a step in the right direction. Another is to make sure, I understand particularly this election year, and I imagine a lot of C-SPAN listeners have strong views on this, and the issue of immigration has become hot and politicized. I understand that. But we cannot remain the most innovative entrepreneurial nation if we don't continue to win what's now a global battle for talent. And immigration has many facets, I understand that. But figuring out some path forward to make sure that that's the case is important. One example I mentioned in the book, which is a sad one, there was an entrepreneur who was at Wharton, started a company after graduating from Wharton, wanted to stay in the United States, but couldn't get his visa extended. So basically had to go home, in his case, to India. And now that company called Snapdeal has 5,000 employees and is worth $5 billion in India, and he wanted to be here.
That was his dream was to build it here.
And I hear these stories all over the country. So that's another area. And then regulations. How do you figure out what the right regulations are to protect people, but also enable innovation? There are some regulations that are more designed to protect the incumbent and make it harder for the innovator. Those are bad. There's some regulations that actually are designed to protect people, and that is good. And so how do you make sure you take a fresh look at this, particularly in a world that is starting to converge and collide, where some of these things are coming together?
And that's what a lot of people don't understand about regulations. I mean, as someone who's an entrepreneur a couple times over, you're obviously a world-class entrepreneur. A lot of people think big companies are hurt by these regulations. In fact, they actually protect a lot of big companies.